Hey everyone, my name is Matt Church, and this is a story about the importance of practice. To get some context to the story, I was in the Air Force for a number of years. The Air Force, we learned a skill called SABC. It stands for Self-Aid Buddy Care. Essentially, it's first aid you'd apply to a person in need of first aid. It's a skill you train in multiple times, thousands of times, to the point where it gets very monotonous, very repetitive, and most people don't take it seriously anymore, myself included. Mostly because there's only so many times you can put a tourniquet into a fucking dummy before you don't want to put a tourniquet into another fucking dummy ever again. So the story is about a friend of mine named Dunham. This is while I was still in the Air Force. Uh, Dunham worked with me, and we were on shift one night, and surprisingly we weren't busy. There's about five of us in the shop, so Dunham decided we should all kick around a hacky sack that he brought with him. So we're like, why not? There's nothing else to do. So we're kicking this thing around, and I kick it at him eventually, and he doesn't even make an attempt to kick it at all. So I look up at him, and he's looking up at the ceiling almost like that, at nothing. And it's pretty much almost as soon as he does that, he spins around and smacks down right onto the ground. Because he started having a seizure. This is essentially the time when autopilot kicks in. Uh, my body kind of shut down, the brain took over, and since he had fallen right in front of me, I was first down. I grabbed his head, had someone put his feet up into a backpack to treat him for shock. We had someone go grab an AFib, which essentially is a machine that you stick onto a subject's chest, and it will tell you if they need a shock to resuscitate their heart or not. We had someone on the ambulance calling supervision, security forces, 911, all that kind of stuff to make sure that people knew we had a medical emergency on our hands. So as I'm holding Dunham on the ground, he's convulsing. He starts to turn blue. His lips are turning blue because he wasn't breathing anymore. And this is when it gets pretty scary. Because not only was Dunham a very good friend of mine, but he's a father to two kids. He's a husband, and his life is essentially hanging in the balance right like in front of me, like in my arms, more or less. And it's when it gets pretty scary. And so after a while of convulsing, he and not breathing, he eventually starts to breathe again, and he more or less instantly fell asleep. And since Dunham has sleep apnea, he's snoring incredibly loud, like way too loud. And then he starts drooling all over my arm because he's in the crook of my elbow, and he's drooling all over me because he'd fallen asleep. But this is good because now he's breathing again, and he wasn't convulsing anymore, so he was just asleep. Um, Eventually, the ambulance came. He was resuscitated. He was taken to the hospital, and yeah. So pretty much, my point is I practiced this thing so many times that I didn't want to do it anymore because I've done it so many times. But there's a reason. Sometimes there's a method to the madness. Sometimes of doing these things over and over and over and over again, because when the time comes to use it, your body needs to go into autopilot and be able to do things without thinking or without thinking as much. You need to just act, and that's that's pretty much why practice is pretty important.